Welcome to Old Rifle 1898, where we share our passion for the rifles, their history, and the pleasure of shooting them. Today, we're presenting the M1 Garand, the rifle that ended the reign of the bolt-action combat rifle. This was such a big change that we can only compare it to the shift from muzzle loaders to bolt actions back in 1870. You see, in 1840, the Prussian army, what is today big part of Germany, they had a rifle that was similar to this one. While most of the nations were still using muzzle loaders, the Prussian army started using a bolt-action rifle that used paper cartridges and was a lot faster to shoot, obviously, than loading through the bullet through the muzzle and having a rate of fire about 3 shots per minute, while they had was about 9 shots per minute. But that was in 1840, and since everyone was still using muzzle loaders by 1864, remember the American Civil War, the war in the United States of America, was fought with these muzzle loaders by far. It was not until the Prussian army fought against the Danish in 1864, and guess what? They brushed aside all the infantry with their rapid firing from their needle guns. The same happened a couple of years later when the Prussian army confronted the Austro-Hungarian army. And then again, the bolt-action rifle just obliterated the army of the Hungarian because they were still using the muzzle loaders and the tactics related to muzzle loaders. That was the end of the muzzle loader and the birth of the bolt-action rifle as the rifle for the combat units. That was 1867, and by 1893 we have a fully developed bolt-action rifle by Mauser. This is the Mauser 1893 Spanish Mauser, and the thing is that this became the standard kind of rifle for all the armies. It was a bolt action, had 5 round magazine, open sight at the end of the muzzle, which meant that it was kind of in the center of the rifle, and well, it was relatively easy to produce and was incredibly reliable. This stayed as the combat rifle for all nations even up to 1936. And it was kind of odd because at the end of the 19th century, about 1890s, we have the smokeless powder. We had machine guns, the Maxim machine guns. Afterward, we had, during the First World War, we had the PAR machine gun, the Lewis gun, the MP-18 machine gun. You know, we had automatic weapons, but we still were lacking a self-loading rifle. Yes, some nations had adopted in a limited quantity. Some of the self-loading rifles, like the first one was Mexico. In 1910, they used the Modelo Porfirio Diaz of 1908 Modelo Sistema Mondragón. That was the first self-loaded rifle adopted by an army. And yes, again, during the First World War, the French adopted the SRC-18, which was again a self-loading rifle, but in both cases the quantities were relatively limited. Both rifles had a lot of issues of reliability, and they were not pursued in terms of production in real big quantities because of these problems. But then came John C. Garand. He was Canadian born. He was established in the United States and started working for the Springfield Armory in 1921, just after the World War I, trying to produce a reliable self-loading rifle. And he spent more than 10 years doing so until he had the good design, the M1 Garand. John Garand was what we could call the Steve Jobs of the times, because he took many of the technologies that were there already, had been used, but not with good success like in the examples that I just mentioned. So he took all these technologies and he places it in a great package. Now, what he did, he took, first of all, the en-bloc system of the Mannlicher rifle and used it with the M1 Garand. But he improved it. Instead of a straight en-bloc, he staggered it. So now he had 8 rounds instead of 5. He took the sights of the MP-14 and an MP-17 rifle that was widely used by the United States Army during the World War I, which was an English design and had the sights at the very rear of the action. Now, this improved the accuracy because it increased the radius, sight radius of the shooter, but then again he improved it by giving it the capability of windage to those sights, and it was a very strong sight. He also used the gas system from the previous rifles, the gas system that pushed the bolt backwards. It rotate the bolt and push it backwards. And that system came from the Mondragon, and also the SRC used that same gas system and piston. And finally, the rotating bolt of the M1 Garand had its origins on the Mannlicher of 1890, which meant that this was a rotating bolt with a forward and backward action. Head of the bolt rotates. But then Garand made a much simpler system and was way more reliable and smooth. The success of the Garand was so huge and so rapid that all other nations, or the ones that could, developed their own self-loading rifle during the wartime. The Russians had their SVT-38 and SVT-40. The Germans developed their Gabert 42-43. Even the French in 1944 developed the MAS 44 self-loading rifle. And finally, the Germans developed also in 1944 the Sturmgewehr 44, the MP44, and that was what we know today as the assault rifle. After the war, the bolt action was really dead. Yeah, it was still used for special missions or situations, but the bolt action rifle was no longer the standard for the armies to go to war with. The M1 Garand and all the self-loading rifles that look into the design of the Garand and were developed were the standard from then on. That is the big impact of the M1 Garand and why it's so highly regarded even today as a great rifle. We will see the details of the M1 Garand in other video, but I hope you like this overview of the depth of the bolt action rifle. See you soon.